Hey guys, welcome back to The Deep. It's been a minute, but we're back each week diving into some of those overlooked gems from the Disney Plus library. This week, we're talking about the Disney animated sequel that started them all, The Return of Jafar. Beginning with The Return of Jafar in 1994, the Disney Movie Tunes Animation Studio and Walt Disney Television Animation produced numerous sequels, prequels, and even midquels to be distributed by Walt Disney Home Video. But in 2008, John Lasseter, who was the chief executive officer of Disney Animation Division at the time, and Disney CEO Bob Iger decided that oversaturating the market with quickly produced movies wasn't the way to nurture Disney's legacy IP. Even though today the company is still pumping out these live-action remakes instead. This movie picks up where the 1992 classic Aladdin leaves off. In this tale, Aladdin, played by Scott Weiner, Princess Jasmine, played by Linda Larkin, and the rest of the gang are not as free of the menacing sorcerer Jafar, played by Jonathan Freeman, as they thought. Since their last encounter with him, Jafar has been imprisoned in a magic lamp, but an inept thief, Abbas Maul, played by Jason Alexander, is about to change that. Luckily for Aladdin and his friends, Jafar's parrot Iago, played by Gilbert Godfrey, has switched to their side, which is good because they need all the help they can get. So come on down, stop on by, hop a carpet and fly as we go deep in the plot. Hey guys, so this week I have a special co-host with me, Dave Sorge, and he's going to talk with me about the movie Return of Jafar. Dave, are you excited about this?
I am so excited to be on the podcast, actually, because it's something I've dreamed of, and you know that. As soon as I found out you were doing a podcast, what did I do? I begged you to be on it, didn't I?
I love the idea that you've dreamed of this. You need to dream higher, my friend. This is
I don't think so.
There are better things.
This is the pinnacle. After tonight, I'm done.
Okay, cashing it all in. Fantastic. So originally you wanted to review Aladdin, and unfortunately it's not quite deep enough for us. So I suggested Return of Jafar. You said okay, and you may have regretted that now.
I didn't regret it immediately. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. I've never seen it, so I'm just going to watch it. I feel like, I'm a big fan of the Aladdin movie. It's how bad could it be? And boy, I learned my lesson pretty quickly.
Yeah, so this was Disney's first straight-to-video movie, and it was done by Disney Toon Studios, and it is a little bit rough, obviously, to say the least. It is definitely, the animation is not up to par. They could not, because of some contractual disputes with Robin Williams, get Robin Williams back, and so they have Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer Simpson, in there, who did a good job, but when you have to fill the shoes of Robin Williams, it's a tough putt, as Will Smith would probably tell you. And so I think that sometimes I feel like Dan Castellaneta, and you tell me if you think so too, sounds a little bit like the Homer Simpson genie.
There's times when there's no question about it. It's Homer Simpson. If you're not looking at the screen, what you hear is Homer Simpson. And it is really hard to forget. It's tough to fill in the shoes of Robin Williams because he has such this amazing quick wit, and it all comes off so genuine, and it feels really forced. Even though Dan Castellaneta is incredibly talented and super funny, the guy's hilarious if you ever hear him just give interviews. But it felt like he was really a fish out of water trying to stand in the shoes of Robin Williams for this role. It just didn't feel like a good fit.
Yeah, and probably the best they could do at the time. And again, since it was the first straight-to-video movie that they had done, I think they probably had probably a tough budget. I was surprised, actually, that they had as many of the returning cast from the original movie as they did. I think today that would probably cost them a pretty penny, but I think back in the 90s that was probably very doable. Linda Larkin as the voice of Jasmine, who was the speaking voice, not the singing voice, but she's back. Frank Welker came back to do the voice of Abu. Jonathan Freeman, the voice of Jafar. The voice of the Sultan was different, and I think that might have been because the original voice was having health issues. But other than that, I mean, it was kind of like the gang was all back together, and then they added Jason Alexander in it to be the bad guy in cahoots with Jafar. So I was pretty impressed overall, and obviously it would have been a different ballgame had they gotten Robin Williams back in.
Oh, it would have been a totally different movie.
Yeah.
I thought Jason Alexander, though, actually did a great job, great character. And one of the things that really stuck out to me, it almost felt out of place. It was so good, is the singing voice of Jasmine because she just has a phenomenal voice. I mean, and then the music in the movie is not fantastic. You know, definitely doesn't live up to what Aladdin was. But I thought she did a fantastic job at one song that she had. And forgive me because I don't remember the name of it, but she's got a beautiful voice.
Yeah, and interesting you would bring that up because they use a little hints of some of the original music in this. I think they use a little bit of One Jump in the background, and it's very like light, but you get the feeling it's to kind of bring you back in to say, hey, this is an extension of Aladdin. So the music is definitely important. It was a huge part of the original movie. The new songs are okay. There's nothing that I think put on my playlist. I mean, I don't know if there's any, like you said, I mean, she sounded good, but is that a song you would listen to over and over again?
No, in fact, I can't even remember the song at all. I don't remember anything about the song. Right. But her voice definitely stood out to me as being great. I think the guy that did the music for this, he has mostly done some TV stuff. He hasn't really done a whole lot of feature movies. The stuff he has been really kind of B-level animation, and I don't think he did all that much Disney stuff. He had done quite a few different things, but mostly he's done straight to video and television.
Yeah. Well, I think the dirty little secret of this movie is that it is the beginning to the Aladdin TV show, the Aladdin series that was on television, and this really kind of feels like TV animation. I mean, it was done by Disney Toon Studios, obviously, but there are these places where it feels like they've cut for a commercial break, where it kind of brings down the animation and the music and then brings it back up. So it feels like it was cut originally for TV, and that maybe this was the first maybe 2 or 3 episodes of the series. That series ran for 3 years right after this. So this was definitely the kickoff to it, but it just feels like that. It's not movie theater quality by any stretch of the imagination, right?
Yeah, and I agree with you. Watching it immediately as soon as it starts, the first thing that comes to mind is Saturday morning cartoons.
Sure.
And it felt that kind of level of art and animation in the movie.
One of the things, actually, I remember when this movie came out, and I had it, because I was a huge Aladdin fan. I was very excited to watch this movie, and so I have memories of it, which is one of the reasons I suggested it. I hadn't gone back to it for a while, and so going back to it, I think I had a lot of the same feelings you did about it. But one of the things that I thought was so cool at the time was catching all of the kind of mistakes and gaffes that they did in the movie, and one of them, which I don't know if you caught it, probably not, because you were only watching it for the first time, was when Aladdin brings the jeweled flower to Jasmine. She puts it in a vase, and then Abu is trying to steal it, and so he reaches up to grab the flower, but he grabs the wrong one. And they show the vase again, and it has both flowers in it, even though Abu has one in his hand. And then when they cut to it again, there are no flowers in it. And then they cut back to it, and there's 2 or there's 1. So it was just like really sloppy, actually, in the way they did that animation. And on top of that, one thing that I noticed immediately and rewound to check to make sure I was right, when Aladdin is throwing the jewels that he's gotten into the city to give back to the people, there's a scene where he throws the jewels, and then they cut to that exact same piece of animation. It couldn't have been more than like 3 seconds, and they just reused it like no one was ever going to notice. So stuff like that is just again something you would never see in a Disney movie for the theater, and I don't think you'll ever see that in a Disney movie again. At least I hope not.
Well, maybe you watched the TV show, and I didn't, but maybe you could answer this. So in the TV show, does the genie have the bracelets on?
Oh, right. Yeah, the cuffs. Yes, he does. He always has them on again, which doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't, because he's breaks free of them at the end of Aladdin, and then he's wearing them again. So it kind of doesn't make sense.
I think you see him with them all the time. Whether you see him, I believe that the Park character has the cuffs. I think that they definitely use them in the series, and they definitely use them in the movie that follows this, which is Aladdin and the King of Thieves. But it does not make sense that something that were the shackles that bound him as a genie, that he would want to wear them again.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of the whole purpose of the entire first movie was for him to get out of those. Yeah, and then he wears them for the rest of. He's like goes by, kind of miss those, and yeah.
So one thing I also find interesting about this movie that is sort of a milestone is it's the first sequel to a Disney full-length animated feature. Even though it wasn't released to theaters, it's the first time they had a sequel, which of course opened the floodgates to all kinds of other sequels. There was a Cinderella 2 and 3. There was an Aladdin 3 after this one. There was a sequel to Bambi. There was a sequel to Hunchback. But this one is the one to blame for being the very first sequel to a Disney full-length animated feature.
Yeah, it's amazing they ever made another sequel considering the quality of this one. And one of the things that I looked it up because I was curious, it has a 33 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not too good.
Well, but it also made a lot of money. I mean, this movie
true.
did make a lot of money for a movie that was you had to buy. I mean, so it wasn't a movie theater movie, and I think if it was, it probably would have failed. I mean, you could argue that it was a simpler time in 1994 than it is now. And the Disney name probably carries a lot, but I think that despite how bad the movie is when we look back on it now, quality-wise, it still made a lot of money.
It's true, and they made it in only 2 years, and they had two separate studios work on it. They had for the first time, they had the studio in Australia, I think it was, work on the first half of the movie, and then Japan did the second half of the movie. And you can actually, if you watch the movie, you can see right at the midway point, there's a distinct difference in the quality of the drawings that happens right in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
It's hard to watch in general. And again, it's a Disney movie, so I'm always gonna reserve judgment. I'm always going to try to give it another chance, but it is a little bit rough. So I tried to watch it with my family, with two different members of my family as they dozed in and out of it. It's just, it's interesting, but I don't know if it's one that I'm going to watch again.
It took me 3 days to get through the movie. It's an hour and 8 minutes long.
Wow. All right. So here's the big question then. Would you recommend this movie?
I would not. I would recommend almost anything but this movie, actually.
Almost anything but this movie. That is harsh.
Yeah, look, I'm a big Disney fan, maybe not as big as you, but for me to have such a hard time getting through an hour-long movie, literally where I would sit down and I'd get 20 minutes through and I'm like, I need a break. That's not a good sign for a movie. So I feel like if you can't sit down and watch an hour, that probably not a good use of your time.
Well, I mean, you did propose to your wife at Disney World, so I feel like you can call yourself a Disney expert. You're a pretty big fan.
I could write a book on how to propose to a woman at Disney World. So if you need any tips.
Yeah. And then immediately after, you show her Return of Jafar and you win her heart forever.
That's no.
That's
I feel like it would have ended in divorce had I gone to that.
So, you know what? For me, I think that if you're a huge Aladdin fan, you watch this movie. If like Aladdin is your jam, and if that is the case, you've probably already seen this movie. And I think that if you're that person and you feel like you need to defend it, definitely comment and let us know what you thought of it. But for me, I think it's probably, as you said, a skippable movie. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not good.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way you do. It's not horrible, and there actually are some good moments. If you're an Iago fan and you want to see him have a redemption story, boom, this is the one for you.
If you were the guy looking for an Iago redemption story, this is your movie.
If you've been waiting for Iago's redemption, this is it.
Gotcha. All right, man, I appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, so Dave, you know how this works. You got to give us your pick of the week. So tell us what your pick of the week is.
My pick of the week is Through the Mirror. It's a Mickey short, and it's from 1936. It's only 8 minutes long, and to me, this is really when Disney animation first started coming into its own. You have Walt doing the voice of Mickey, which he only did through 1946. Music by Frank Churchill. He also did the music in Snow White, 1937. Helped with the music in Mr. Toad and Peter Pan. Some elements of this short were actually used in the video game Epic Mickey. If you ever played that, I know you played that, Rob.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Great game. Lots of references to Alice in Wonderland, so you can really see where maybe Walt was getting the idea of doing the Alice in Wonderland movie from this. A lot of very sort of trippy imagery, and if you didn't know it was a dream for Mickey, there'd be some semi drug references in the movie, but It's clearly just a dream, so no worries there. And of course, Alice in Wonderland, happened, 1951, so it was quite a bit after that. What's really interesting to me is as beautiful as the animation is in this. This happened just 8 years after Steamboat Willie. So to think that they went from this first marriage of audio and video in a movie to what they did in this short, it's a remarkable accomplishment. The animation's fantastic, and for me it's worth checking out just for the animation alone. But it's great music, it's great animation, beautiful drawings. It's classic Disney short. You got to see it.
Cool. Extra innings. How do you feel about the new animated Mickey Mouse versus this Mickey Mouse?
I love the classics, so I'm going to say I probably slightly favor the classics, but I really like what they've done with the new stuff. To me, it's very much in the spirit of what Mickey was. Obviously, I think it fits today's culture, better. But I just think they've done a fantastic job with the new shorts.
Cool. So for my deep pick of the week, I chose Aladdin and the King of Thieves because I feel like it is the story that needs to be told after we just talked about Return of Jafar. So in Aladdin, King of Thieves, Return of Jafar takes place before the Aladdin series. It is the kickoff to the Aladdin series in the same way that the King of Thieves is the end of it. The Aladdin series was about Aladdin and Jasmine going on adventures. This is them finally getting married. So when I'm watching this one, the first thing that occurs to me is you could have totally skipped Return of Jafar, gone from Aladdin to this movie. I don't know that there's anything in Return of Jafar other than the fact that Iago is part of the crew now that you really needed to watch Return of Jafar to be able to enjoy this movie. So as harsh as we were on Return of Jafar, if you feel like you want to skip that one, I think this is actually a pretty good movie. It was the return of Robin Williams. They had fixed all of his contract issues, and they had basically apologized to him and brought him back into the fold. So he was part of this movie. He is a classic Robin Williams as the genie in this one. He does all of the little side bits. He probably was just on fire. They recorded everything. He did a Mrs. Doubtfire in this, which was fantastic. And there are a lot more Disney references in this movie than there were in Return of Jafar, just like there were references in Aladdin. So he is Tinkerbell for a little bit. So, I mean, it's a neat thing to have Robin Williams back into it. It definitely gives it that energy, as we said, that we missed from Return of Jafar. It is introducing John Rhys Davies as his dad, the King of Thieves. And so that's kind of a cool thing as well. I had read that Sean Connery was originally supposed to play his dad in this, which if that had happened, oh my gosh, who knows like what a classic this might have been just because of his reputation. So it's a good movie. It's a good end to the saga of Aladdin and Jasmine. And it's the animation is a little bit better quality. It's still that Disney Toons quality that we had in Return of Jafar. But all the voices, again, come back for this one. And to have Robin Williams in it takes it from 0 to 60, having him back in it. And the music, because he is performing the music, I think he does a few songs in this one, seems a little bit more on par again with the first movies, even though it's not Howard Ashman and Alan Menken doing it. So again, Aladdin, King of Thieves, I would highly recommend, and I would also say you do not have to watch Return of Jafar in order to enjoy this movie.
That's a relief.
What'd you say?
That's a relief.
Okay. Well, if you guys have any comments about anything we've talked about, please make sure to leave them below, or you can reach us on @DeepInThePlus on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. So thanks for joining us, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
If you like what you're watching, make sure you like and subscribe. You can also find us on social at Deep in the Plus on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you're a Disney Parks fan, don't forget to catch me and Rob on Park Center Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. on WDWNT.com.